Welcome to 10.3, and today we're going to be talking about solving one-step inequalities using multiplication and division of a negative number. Okay, so now we're going to switch over from positive, like we were doing in the last section, to multiplying or dividing by a negative. Just a reminder, solving a one-step inequality is similar to solving a one-step equation. Again, the only difference is instead of an equal sign, we're going to be using an inequality symbol, and the four symbols that we have: greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So we're going to start by solving a one-step inequality using multiplication of a negative number. Okay, so in order to do that, we multiply the same negative number to both sides of the inequality symbol. Now, when we do that, oops, wrong word here. The inequality symbol does change when we multiply by a negative number to both sides. Okay, and what happens is it flips from facing one side of the inequality to facing the other. So less than becomes greater than and vice versa. So greater than would become less than. And less than or equal to would become greater than or equal to and vice versa. So greater than or equal to would become less than or equal to. So we simply flip the way the inequality opens up when we multiply by a negative number. So for our first example, we have x divided by negative 3 is greater than 4. Okay, so right now x is being divided by a negative 3. So in order to undo that, I need to multiply by a negative 3. And if I multiply the left side by a negative 3, I have to multiply the right side by a negative 3 as well. Just like before, on the left side, the negative 3's are going to cancel, leaving just x. But now, the inequality was greater than. It's going to flip to becoming less than because I multiplied by a negative. So take a look right there. Notice the flip. And then on the right side, 4 times negative 3 gives me a negative 12. So my final answer is going to be x is less than a negative 12. So again, multiplying by a negative flips the inequality, makes it face the other direction. Our next example, we have v divided by a negative 4 is less than 6. Okay, so again, right now v is being divided by a negative 4. So in order to undo that, I need to multiply by a negative 4 on the left. And if I multiply the left by a negative 4, I have to multiply the right by a negative 4 as well. On the left, the negative 4's cancel out, leaving just v. My inequality was less than, but since I multiplied by a negative number, I have to flip it to become a greater than. And on the right side, 6 times negative 4 is negative 24. So my final answer is going to be v is greater than negative 24. Our next example, we've got b divided by negative 2 is greater than 8. Since b is being divided by a negative 2, in order to undo that, I need to multiply by a negative 2. And if I multiply the left by a negative 2, I have to multiply the right by a negative 2 as well. On the left, the negative 2's cancel each other out, leaving just b. My inequality started out as greater than, but since I multiplied by a negative, I have to flip it to being a less than symbol. And then on the right, 8 times negative 2 is negative 16. So my final answer should be b is less than a negative 16. Go ahead and pause the video and solve the inequality. C over negative 6 is less than 9 on your own for C. And then hit play and see how you did. Since c is being divided by a negative 6, you need to multiply by negative 6 to get rid of it. If you multiply the left by negative 6, you have to multiply the right by negative 6 as well. On the left, the negative 6's cancel out, leaving just c. My inequality started out as less than. We need to flip it since we multiplied by a negative to be a greater than. And then on the right, 9 times negative 6 is negative 54. So my final answer is c is greater than negative 54. Next, we're going to talk about dividing to solve a one-step inequality. And when we're dividing by a negative number, we need to divide that same negative number on both sides of the inequality. Now, the inequality symbol does change when we divide by a negative number on both sides. So division and multiplication, if it's by a negative number, we need to flip the inequality. And just a reminder, less than will become greater than and vice versa. less than or equal to will become greater than or equal to, and vice versa. So if we have the inequality negative 3x is greater than 18, right now negative 3 and x are being multiplied together. So in order to get rid of that negative 3, I need to divide by negative 3. And if I divide the left by negative 3, I have to divide the right by negative 3 as well. On the left side, the negative 3's cancel out, leaving just x. The inequality was greater than, but since I divided by a negative, it switches to less than. And then 18 divided by negative 3 gives me a negative 6. So my final answer is x is less than negative 6. Our next example, we've got negative 4c is less than 12. Right now, negative 4 and c are being multiplied together. So in order to undo that, I need to divide by negative 4. And if I divide the left by negative 4, I need to divide the right by negative 4 as well. On the left side, the negative 4's cancel out, leaving just c. My inequality was less than, but since I divided by a negative, I need to switch it to be greater than. And then 12 divided by negative 4 gives me a negative 3. So my final answer is c is greater than negative 3. For our next example, we've got negative 6b is greater than 24. Right now, negative 6 and b are being multiplied together. So in order to undo that, I need to divide by a negative 6. And if I divide the left by negative 6, I need to divide the right by negative 6 as well. On the left, the negative 6's cancel, leaving just b. My inequality started out as greater than, but since I divided by a negative, it's going to switch to less than. And 24 divided by a negative 6 gives me a negative 4. So my final answer is going to be b is less than negative 4. Go ahead and pause the video and solve the inequality negative 2d is less than 20 for d, and then hit play and see how you did. Since d and negative 2 are being multiplied together, to get d by itself, you need to divide by negative 2. And if you divide the left by negative 2, you have to divide the right by negative 2 as well. On the left, the negative 2's cancel out, leaving just d. The inequality started out as less than, but since we divided by a negative, it flips to be greater than. And on the right, 20 divided by negative 2 is negative 10. So my final answer should be d is greater than negative 10.